Thank you for allowing us to testify before you today. We're the Black River We the People team from Holland, Michigan, and we represent Michigan's Unit 4. My name is Sierra Lynch. I'm a junior, and I'm on Units 4 and 1.
My name is Elijah LeBurn. I'm a junior, and I'm on Units 4 and 2.
My name is Sia Rajguria. I'm a junior. I'm on Units 4 and 5. And our coach is Peter Lutzman, assisted by Luke Ryder.
Hey, Luke, how are you this morning? Good to see
Hello.
you. I told a group yesterday when I was a junior in high school, I was still trying to remember where my locker was, and y'all are doing 2 minutes apiece. This is not right at all. Francine, you want to introduce yourself to me?
Sure. I'm Francine Engel. I'm a judge from Maryland. I'm a political scientist and a constitutional scholar. I work with the Maryland Council for Civic and History Education. And I do have a little bit of a Michigan connection. I used to teach at University of Michigan in the political science department.
Sure enough. Wolverine.
Go Blue.
Honorary Wolverine, anyway. Now you meet the alumnus of this group, who's the one you have to watch out for. Alumni are the hardest ones. JoJo, tell us who you are.
Good morning. My name is Jocelyn Broman. As Mike mentioned, I'm an alumni of the program. I competed back in 2006. I currently work on Capitol Hill for Representative Paul Cook of California.
And I'm Mike Miles. I'm the treasurer of Jefferson County, and I live in Birmingham. And when I tell people that I live in Birmingham, they always assume that it's Alabama. They never think this draw comes from Michigan. They never think the Birmingham, Alabama one. You know which question we're doing, but just to give you a trigger mechanism, we'll read it real quick and then give you the rest of the time. This is question 3. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution provides that state legislatures can determine the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives, yet gives Congress the power to make or alter such regulations. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a uniform election process? What responsibility do state legislatures, state election officials, and citizens have in maintaining free and fair elections? And finally, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the trustee and delegate theories of representation as they apply to congressional districts? Thank you for all the work you've done to get to this point. It's fun from here on in. It's going to be fun for us too. You ready to go?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All yours. Take it away.
Leading up to the 2018 midterms, thousands of voters were shocked to find they had been deregistered to vote. In Ohio, once eligible citizens were purged simply because they hadn't voted in the past 2 years. A report by the Brennan Center for Justice found that between 2014 and 2016, states removed nearly 16 million, a sharp increase from previous years.
Perhaps the most contentious election in recent history was the 2000 presidential. In Bush v. Gore, the court controversially ruled that Florida's recount method devalued ballots by arbitrary and disparate treatment, violating the Equal Protection Clause. Through differing and contradictory standards, the will of the people was muddled by bureaucracy.
Uniform voting technology became more popular in 2002 when Congress passed the Help America Vote Act in response to technical difficulties, giving state election offices $3 billion to replace their old equipment. While this act improved the uniformity of elections, it's hard to imagine Congress funding another upgrade in the future.
With nationalized election procedures, however, forms of voter suppression could be implemented into all elections and become impossible to dislodge. For example, in 2019, the Israeli Likud Party illegally installed cameras in Arab communities, decreasing their turnout by 50% through nationwide intimidation. On the other hand, localities are just as prone to discrimination. The striking down of preclearance in Shelby County v. Holder reopened the doors to discrimination by states.
Any regulations, state or federal, are implemented by local election officials, an example of street-level bureaucrats, a term coined by Michael Lipsky to identify the government workers that citizens interact with and offer assistance in the voting process. Donald Moynihan states that they are the administrators of democracy.
Article 1, Section 4 gives state legislatures the first chance to create a free and fair process. But should they fail, citizens themselves can step in, as seen with Michigan's ballot proposals 2 and 3, which increase the ease of and access to elections. Democratic elections must be transparent, inclusive, accountable, and there must be equitable opportunities to compete.
Recently, 16 states have delayed their primaries due to the COVID-19 pandemic in order to ensure free and fair elections this term. Because of shelter-in-place orders, states such as Wyoming and Alaska have switched to voting entirely by mail.
The American people want their voice heard in government. Many would support the delegate model of representation, where their congressman is a mouthpiece for their constituency. Bound by imperative mandate, a delegate votes exactly as the people would.
The trustee model, on the other hand, would be supported by Federalists and many framers. As Madison wrote in Federalist 10, a representative ought to refine and enlarge the public views. Their wisdom may best discern the true interest of their country. Today, representatives are seen as out of touch when they vote contrary to their district, sacrificing their personal judgment and conscience.
However, when representatives aren't held on such a short leash, they can be empowered to do what they think is right for the nation. Utah Senator Mitt Romney broke ranks with his Republican colleagues and voted his conscience in the impeachment trial.
The delegate theory, however, closely links government to the people's will. As Madison himself wrote in Federalist 57, the electors are to be not the rich more than the poor, not the learned more than the ignorant, not the heirs of distinguished names more than humble sons. The electors are to be the great body of the people. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Well, thank you. That was terrific. And that had a lot of things in it. That gave us a lot of things to ask you about. Let me ask you one quick one. If you've got 50 secretaries of state applying 35 different standards of when to purge a voter, how tough it is to be identified at the polls. You know, in Alabama, you have to have a driver's license, and then they immediately closed about 15 of the driver's license stations that were in the black communities, the black counties of the state. When you allow the states that much authority over how it's done, are you just about guaranteeing that there's no equal protection under the law in the United States when it comes to voting rights?
I would argue that yes, by allowing states to create these voting laws and voting procedures, it does allow for this sort of discrimination and unfairness, but it also allows for states to implement new ways of expanding rights. We saw this directly with the women's suffrage movement, with Wyoming being one of the first states for allow women the right to vote. And furthermore, and this led to many states creating their own laboratories of democracy for allowing women to vote. So a flip side to that, we see that states are also able to create more protections for individuals than the national government has.
That's true. They are. That's a good point. But do they do it? Do they really expand the rights that much, or do you see more limiting it than expanding? I mean, the Wyoming example is a great example, but it was when, in the 20s? I mean, you know, do they use that power to expand voting rights, or have they only been using it to suppress?
I think there are definitely.
Go ahead.
I think there are definitely instances of both cases. I think certain places in Maryland allow non-citizen voting, and that's very recent as well. So there is still an expansion. But I think this more so stresses the importance of the national government to keep a check on these states as well. With Shelby County v. Holder, pre-clearance it definitely weakened the Civil Rights Act. And I think pre-clearance being reinstated, not just in the southern states, but in all states, could be a possible solution to its inconsistency or lack of regulation.
Boy, I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. We've gone on. Francine, go ahead. Take a shot if you want to start.
Yeah, so as far as we were talking a little bit about equal protection, how well do you think we've done at upholding the notion of one person, one vote?
Good.
So
I think, go ahead. I think with the court's refusal to solve gerrymandering, but ruling it unconstitutional, was very much a weakened stance for the people. I think states have now had to rise up and take the initiative themselves, such as Michigan's ballot proposal 2, which created a bipartisan redistricting committee to solve the issue of gerrymandering. I think this issue has longed misrepresented votes by packing and cracking, and I think it's one of the most prominent issues in today's country, or in today.
The national government has been somewhat limited when it comes to one person, one vote, as we can see with the case Rucho v. Common Cause, which Sierra was referring to. But there are examples of states going above and beyond, like Sierra was referring to. And this often tends to be where one person, one vote is more strictly upheld.
I would agree with both Eli and Sierra, and further argue that I think this is one of the reasons why, if we have a nationalized election process, we wouldn't be able to have this laboratories of democracy, and states wouldn't be able to go above and beyond in protecting voting rights. We see that if any sort of voter suppression was implemented at the national level, it would be much harder to eradicate than anything on the state level.
Let's go to your trustee and delegate discussion in your statement. You mentioned that Mitt Romney voted his conscience and as an example of the trustee position. Do you think other senators didn't vote their conscience and didn't act as trustees to their constituents?
Well, I would argue that many senators in that instance voted along party lines, which, whether they were going against their conscience or not, is something that we will never really know. But I would argue that it was definitely a more polarized decision than anything.
So where does party fit into this trustee delegate representation?
Well, I think as the population becomes more polarized and as Congress becomes more polarized as well, and due to the fact that Congress is, Congress members are more likely to publicly side with their party because they don't want to appear as disloyal. I think this party polarization has contributed to the delegate model, seeing as the people are also so divided. So their representatives, they want to vote the exact vote that the people would themselves. They want to align with their party. So I think it's more so the intention of, or America has shifted towards this delegate model, and that's why we see such few people going against what their normal party would be in votes like this.
I would agree with Sierra. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I would agree with Sierra. I would think that party polarization is completely contributing to the delegate model of representation, where people are voting their individuals what they believe is correct, and they're not wanting to go because people, like we said in our response. May I please finish my statement?
Yes.
As we said in our response, people will know what they want to see in government, so the delegate model of representation allows them to vote for what they want in their own government. Thank you.
Great job, guys.
I think we take it for granted how they're going to vote, and when they fool us, we think they're trustees. Nice job. That was fun. That was fun. That really was. The essay gave us so many different places. We did a follow-up on mine. We could have gone, Francine, I feel like we could have gone 6 minutes on voting rights, or we could have gone 6 on delegate and trustee, because Michigan's had some pretty courageous United States senators over the years that have been fun to watch. It is early in the day, Chris. I want you to know I'm keeping count. Chris Kenton and I have a bet since I'm from Birmingham. I live 5 minutes from the Shelby County line. So he and I have a running bet on how many times Shelby v. Holder is going to be mentioned to the kid from Birmingham over the next few days. It's 1-0 early in the day. I told a group yesterday that some states practice voter suppression. Alabama has turned it into an art form. We know exactly how to do it, I'm afraid, down here. I thought your essay was terrific. We could have just listened to your essay and thanked you and moved on. I thought the Q&A was good, and the hard part was we were trying all three to get some time to visit with you, but we could have gone way more than 6 minutes on any one of those because you were ready for us. The court cases that you brought late in the question and answer really helped me to show that you had researched those. I thought the court cases were on point and were really good for this early in the morning. That was the one to start out on for me today. I love that. Thank you very much. Francine, what do you think?
Yeah, no, you did a fabulous job. I really enjoyed your prepared statement. You covered so much within that. It was really, really enjoyable to watch. And there was just so many places we could go with our questioning after, because you just covered so many things. I like you had the historical in there. You brought in Federalist Papers, but then you have more contemporary stuff like Bush versus Gore, and then you brought in COVID and how that's applying. So it was a really great balance between the historical and the contemporary. And then I just thought you did a really great job responding to all our questions, because we kind of went in a bunch of different directions, and you were solid on no matter what we gave you, and all three of you participated and gave really thoughtful responses. So I thought you did a fabulous job.
I agree.
Yeah, I would echo that for my other judges, and also mention that little example in your statement of the Israeli party putting in cameras to monitor. That's something that gives an international feel. Like elections, like yes, we're talking about U.S. elections, but elections also happen across the world, and we need to be aware of those kinds of issues as well. In your statement, you did a really good job of talking about the dangers and advantages of nationalizing and also leaving it local. And I think you guys have a very great understanding of where nationalizing can be helpful, but it can also hurt, and localities can do that. And so as the Q&A in your statement, that showed a really good balance of understanding that it's probably, the answer probably isn't one or the other, it's a combination of both. And dealing with the trustee-delegate relationship and talking about party, it's one of those things like that shift towards more direct representation of following what your district's looking for. It's something that is happening. And although I will say that polarization is there and the party is important, but working for a member that doesn't always vote with his party is always really fun to work for, because you have a different perspective. My member is a more moderate Republican, so he has on occasion voted against party on specific issues in the House, especially when they're important to him. So it's one of those balances that every member deals with it differently, and it's always fascinating to see how that kind of works out as well. But I think you guys get a great understanding of how those kinds of considerations work into representation. So excellent job this morning.
I agree. Two things in closing, and we'll move on and let you get ready for the next group. Over and over and over, not just in this, but in so many discussions weighing about this, we hear, yes, we discriminate from state to state in regard to what voting rights individuals have. Yes, there's a lot of discrimination common, but, and then we all shrug because we can't figure out, and Jocelyn's right, the thought of fixing it on the national level is not a very comforting thought. So we shrug our shoulders and say, yeah, we discriminate, but we don't know what to do about it. My generation, and even Francine and Jocelyn's younger than me, haven't done a good job of addressing that. That's one of the things I would love to see y'all do, is figure out how a person in Michigan and their cousin in Illinois could have the same rights and be assured of the same comfort. If they've missed an election because they were sick, they don't get purged before they go back. I'd love to see y'all fix that, and that would be something really fun to see. The last thing let us say before we go is that it's always fun to see a team that's well prepared, and especially in this year's competition with the degree of difficulty. Peter, they're rallying for you to do this in Zoom rather than in person is a good indication of what a great relationship y'all apparently have. The students' loyalty to you and yours to them was very, very evident this morning. So Peter, thank you for all your hard work. Very, very much. We'll clap for you one more time.